Yay, hello, and welcome to this week Training Tuesday Live. We're super excited to be here to talk about the why and the how of self-publishing. And we have the perfect person here to do that. Actually, it's this way, I think. Mike Gingerich, he's my co-host, and he's the president of Digital Hill, the co-founder of the popular app Dwafio, tab site, published author extraordinaire, hence the reason we're interviewing his story today, talking about self-publishing. But before we dive into it, if we've not met before, hello, my name is Jessika Phillips with Now Marketing Group and the founder of the Relationship Marketing System. So, Mike, before we talk about the self-publishing, though, I do have to say a very happy birthday to you. It is your birthday today.
Thank you very much. It is indeed. And as we talked about before, definitely another year older, hopefully a little bit wiser.
Yeah, that's the only way. You just learn as you go, and sometimes it's just like fine wine. It just gets better and better with age.
Ooh,
That's
that
at least
good.
What I'm trying to tell myself, as I continue covering up more and more grace. But not here to talk about that today, although we are here to wish you a very happy birthday. So if you're watching with us live, please let us know where you're at in the world, and drop it in the comments here, and wish Mike a happy birthday. Also, if you're catching the replay, let us know that you joined in with us, where you're joining in from. And again, give Mike a very happy birthday greeting in there.
And
so
thank you, Katie and Betsy already for those coming in. So thank you.
Yes, definitely. So, Mike, all right, you've done this a time or two. We're talking about self-publishing. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of like all the action steps that you did, I first want to get into kind of the how and the why of the mindset behind even writing a book anyway. So tell me a little bit about some of the background kind of leading up to you publishing, because you have 5 books now?
I do have 5 out there, and I do have number 6 is real close, but it's not there yet.
Of course it is.
Yeah, so I think initially, going back to the first one, it was the goal was to multifold. So a couple of reasons were, number one, to try to put down what I knew and understood into a format that I could get out to more people in a way that they wanted to consume. So people consume content in different ways. Some people read emails, blog posts, podcasts. Some people like to read books, and so I didn't want to miss that market. So that was number one, was to do it that way. Number two was to kind of solidify from a speaker position a place of authority. Just to be able to say that I have put this down. I have done the work to create this book, and so I, through that process, through that journey, there is hopefully a level of expertise gained that it offers value in that. And I think the third piece of that was, as a person that does some speaking along the way, speaking and books can often go hand in hand. So your audience, you're always going to have a window of time with the audience, whether that's 50 minutes, 40 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever, but it's still just a window of time, and there's more you can deliver. Where a book gives you kind of a leave behind type piece there that, you can, hopefully that's where you've expanded upon things. So, longer answer, to why. It was multiple reasons, multiple things that it kind of ticks off on the list that made me want to pursue getting it done.
And that's cool, because you often hear about people publishing in the hopes of making money sometimes, right? And now you're hearing more and more about people publishing in order to just say, hey, I have an expertise in this market. And it's kind of claiming that their knowledge, expertise, like you said, of saying, hey, I really have subject matter expertise in this lane, and I want to highlight it here and get that published as a book, instead of sending you 12, 16 blogs on this that aren't necessarily tied together, that you may not consume all of it if you wanted to get it all in one chunk. Here is that information, and I'm delivering it in a way that you can, have a tangible thing to then go dive into, right? And as well as, a lot of people say that it does help book speaking gigs. They often want to see if you have a book or an app or a product, like mine was digital, for example. But that is asked a lot. So if anybody is listening and wanting to kind of break through in the speaker realm, that is something that a lot of places do look for. They're looking for, do you have a book, or do you have, an expertise that is proven in another way other than just speaking in your website and your blog?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's
absolutely. So it's twofold. So I said that I wanted to be able to have something to kind of leave behind, but your point is totally valid as well, because I have been asked that as well. So people looking to hire me to speak or that type of piece have looked at that and as well and said they wanted that. So that was actually my my biggest sale was through a speaking gig where the conference. It was a niche industry in the law arena, and the conference actually bought a copy for everyone. So that was
awesome.
Yeah, that was tremendous.
And to touch on your leave behind, that is something huge as well. Like, what kind of value add? You're presenting on this material. They may be hearing, several different speakers that day, and this is going to make you stand out, as well as helping them a lot more versus that 45-minute window that you may have to speak, right? Because you don't have a lot of time to get into the nitty gritty. And this is depending on what you're talking about, right? Of course, people publish for different things. We have a couple authors at Now Marketing Group, and one gentleman that's one of our account managers. He wrote on, his journey in celibacy, right? So a little bit different. However, if he's speaking to a group, it could be something memorable about not only his talk, if it's aligned, but also some way of people getting to know him more, and then building a tribe of people. So that leave behind for you, was it in hopes of getting more clients in from it? Was it value add, or what was your thoughts there?
Yeah, it was multi. So in some cases it was to as a way to cover trip expenses, so selling books as a profit piece there. The other piece was that, yes, I mean, just like multiple points of contact with a brand allows someone to build trust with them, so that those kinds of points of contact, if they hear about me, they come hear me speak, and they read my book, hopefully that's built some trust, so that when they're looking for someone that with those services, I would come to mind. Definitely.
So you're setting the why of creating it, because this is a labor of love. I'm sure, you've done it several times, so it could be just like rinse and repeat for you right now. But, that's setting the stage of the why and the need that you've seen to creating this book. So anyone else on this tuning in, and I do want to give a quick hello to Ross. How are you, Ross? He says happy birthday, Mike, as well. Yeah, so thanks for joining in with us, Ross. But that's the backstory of kind of the why. So if you're listening in and following this, it's what kind of why do you have if you're considering doing the self-publishing? Because nothing that Mike said, I'm going to make a lot of money from this and be able to quit my day job. It doesn't seem like that was like the intention. It was the value that it brought in other aspects of what you're currently doing.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay.
And I would say I need to add to that, though, because a couple of the different books had different purposes. So that was number one, which was business focus, industry specific, and kind of the social media realm. And so
what's the title of that book, just so in case people want to check it out? Sorry.
Yeah. That was I went blank all of a sudden, but
that's what happens after you write 6 books, people. You just forget.
Yeah.
Like one of your kids.
Yeah, that was game plan for social media lead generation. Sorry.
Awesome.
But that one's what that one was called. Game plan for social media lead generation. And then later on there was a couple other books I've written. So I've written in the social media space, in the leadership space, and in the kind of life learning space. So that kind of encompasses the 3 bucket areas. And the other 2, so leadership was kind of a crossover between business and personal kind of thing, but the intent there was saying that I feel like from my background, I do have a master's degree in leadership organizational development, and then from work experience leading some companies, starting some companies, those types of pieces, that I guess, it's my birthday, so I'll talk about getting older. You kind of have this sense of, what are you going to leave behind? So there's a legacy kind of piece there. And I think I have some pieces that I felt were of value. And so the book was the opportunity to share them one to many rather than one to one. I can speak to someone about it. I can speak to a small group about it. But a book gives me kind of an unlimited capability there. And then particularly the other book that was my most recent one then, was Making the Miles Count. That's more of a life lesson, who you are, what's your purpose book. And so that one for me was kind of definitely one of those where, if I'm gone, what do I want to make sure that family, that kids, that I've imparted? And so this was the opportunity to impart. So that one was driven just by again, that motivation of hopefully I've learned some things. Hopefully I have some things of value to share, and I want to share them and make a way for it to be possible to be out there that anyone can draw from that as well. And hopefully that's an encouragement to them.
That's awesome. So it sounds like you picked some verticals that aligned with you and
Yes.
your skill sets, and then as well thinking about what you can leave behind. And Ross has a great question here. And he says, Mike, do you recommend doing a physical book versus an ebook for the purposes of branding and business opportunities? This is a great question that I've even considered because I've done like the relationship marketing, like book that I print off myself, but it's like an ebook online and then take it to conferences, but never created an actual physical book. So this is a great question. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think the answer is that it depends, Ross. I think it's a great question. So number one, who is it for, and what do they consume? Number two, and I learned this probably the most through the first book. So that one, again, game plan for social media lead generation. Jessica, how quickly does social media change?
Yeah, every day.
Yeah, yeah. And so what happens to a
Yeah.
print book when some things change? It goes out of date fast,
Yeah.
right? So, so Ross, you got to think about that. What's the intended audience? How do they consume information? And if things change quickly, that's related to the book content, what's that going to do for you, kind of thing. Now, your purposes of branding and business opportunities. I think the book does, the physical book does just add another piece. It's helpful. I can't say that it's necessarily better. Again, it comes back to industry and things, whatever your other portfolio looks like. But that is because I have done a Instagram for business ebook, and I have that out there live. But I chose specifically to do that as an ebook because Instagram changes all the time. It's
It
evolving,
changes
that
every
type of
week.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, like Jen Herman, our buddy Jen, she's on the is it Instagram for
Second.
Dummies that's
Yep.
coming out in
Instagram for
October,
dummies.
and
Yeah,
but you
she's the
mentioned the
second
key
one.
word again, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
just because it changes. So you got to be aware of that, Ross, in terms of what content you want to write about. But there can be some value in terms of branding, business opportunities to have that physical book. Again, depending on that audience and target.
No, great question, Ross. And if there are other questions out there, let us know. And Brian, good to see you on here from the Now team. We were just talking about you, Brian. One thing that I've heard as well for people that are writing too is that, and you touched on this a little bit of, adding your expertise in there, but it's also kind of therapeutic for some to get all their information out as it relates to kind of a connected audience. So like you said, for leadership, and you're leaving this legacy behind, and you're putting some things out there that are aligned with what you do, but not necessarily all connected in the digital social space, but it still kind of has this crossover, so to speak. And referencing like what Brian did, again, when he wrote his book, it was something that was aligned with his passion and his beliefs. And he was, referenced that it was almost kind of therapeutic for him to kind of get it out there, as well as helping others kind of along their journey with the thing that they're dealing with, and it's still complementary to his personal brand, but not necessarily that actual thing he's doing, if that makes sense. So
yeah, and mine may seem diverse in that one's in the kind of the social media space, leadership space, life purpose space, and yet together collectively, that's
That's you.
that's yeah. And so somebody that's taking a look at all those
Oh,
pieces, they're gonna get to know the picture, and that's who Mike is, the brand of Mike kind of thing. And so
yeah.
it embodies those pieces, and if somebody takes the time to look at those, they're gonna have a great key as to whether they would want to do business with me, work with me, connect with me.
Yeah, even Rachel Hollis, I follow her. She's well renowned, woman and author, business mastermind, everything, and she writes books specifically on some kind of self-help, but she also does some fiction and some other things that are just interesting to her. So, as you're thinking about this and maybe wanting to pursue writing and becoming self-published, you don't have to rack your brain, I don't think, on, oh my God, does it have to be exactly aligned here? If your desire is to just go for it, I think what I'm hearing you say, Mike, and what I've heard from others is that it's just putting your passion kind of on paper in whatever form that looks like.
Yeah, and that's why self-publishing gives you that freedom. It gives you that flexibility, because no one is saying, "Hey, we need to tweak this angle a little bit," or no one is saying, "Don't say that way." And when it's important to you, that type of piece there. So there is a creative expression, a creative freedom that you do get with self-publishing. And again, it's going to be harder for you to maybe get the distribution to masses, although we can talk about that. There are ways,
Yeah, I want to
to
know the steps that you
get
took in order to
distribution.
get that to
Yeah,
that
yeah.
process.
So there's definitely some pros and cons of that piece, but yeah. So I definitely chose the self-publishing route. There was no publisher coming knocking at my door saying, "Hey, Mike, we want you to write about this at this point in time," that type of thing. For me, it was again that exercise of I wanted to get these pieces down. I wanted to have these tools in my toolkit. I wanted to have these things that I left behind, and the pieces there. So that was the reason. And I did a number of searches online. There's a lot of self-publishing portals, a lot of self-publishing tools out there. And so I started with a platform called Create Space, and they were, after my first book, into my second book, they were purchased by Amazon.com. And so Amazon kind of ran them parallel for a little bit, and then by my third book, their platform had merged, and it's no longer called Create Space. Basically, it's Amazon KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. So that was the platform, and so I chose them largely because I wanted to. I felt like it was a platform that I could understand and do myself, and because it was important for me to make sure I was on Amazon. So there's different places that different self-publishing platforms will enable you to get to, and I definitely wanted to be on Amazon, have it there, and so that made the process for me. So it was a matter of where do they publish to, and what is their process, and what is the ease of that process with the tools and things like that. So because I took care of it A to Z, I mean, book cover, ISBN number, layout, all those pieces, submitting, revisions, that type of thing.
So, wow, that's a lot. That's awesome. I did put the link in here if anybody wants to check that out. But you mentioned several different pieces in here. So the first is if you're deciding to do this, to take this step, we talked about setting the goal, the intention, the idea overall. And then what did this process look like for you from you deciding you're self-publishing? As you said, there's perks and, pros, cons to both of that. Pros of you having the freedom, being able to do a lot of it on your own, so probably a lot less expensive at the beginning. A con is, the distribution as much as well as how much you're making and kind of where all this goes. The pro of self-publishing too, with Amazon, you kind of have everything right there. They're fulfilling it. They're doing all of these things for you. So really, it's just you submitting your work, right? And all of those other elements that you have to create that we're going to walk through. So you did the goal, you made the decision on where to go, and then what did it look like? Are you starting then you're writing, and did you have like a rhythm and a routine on how you got all this out?
Yeah, so I think I was learning as I went. So basically, I had probably 90% of the content written. I had just done this in a Google document kind of piece along the way, and then I went and looked for self-publishing. Where should I do this with that type of
Mhm.
thing? And so once I made that decision, then I was on their track. But you get into the portal, and then they were helping me
Mhm.
with, and it's basically just an all online platform. So when I say helping me, I'm just reading the materials, watching videos, that type of thing. And um, so they had the specific tips and practices. You need to follow these steps, you need to have it in this format, and that type of thing. So then I had to change some things. I had my content largely there, but I had to change the layout to fit the format that they wanted. But again, I was still able to do that all within a Google document, and export it out of there, upload it to their system, so it just had to meet their specs. So they wanted, certain types of margins, for instance, and certain, space, font size, different things like that that they would want. If you're going to use any images in there, they'd be high enough resolution, those types of pieces. So by my second book, I knew to start with the specs. Okay, and it was kind of like, what size of a book do you want? I mean, they would have multiple sizes. Is this going to be, something that is what is mine? It's like, 5 inches wide, 8 inches tall, or different things like that, or different ones. So again, so that's going to impact different pieces.
Cool. And so you learned that along the way, wrote it in a Google Doc, and then I do want to answer your question, Ross, before I ask Mike the next question. So he said, Jessica, you mentioned print on demand. I think you print paperback copies only for taking to speaking gigs, or do you offer paperback copies to customers in addition to ebook versions? So yes, both, all of the above. So what I've done is print it online, and then I SmartPress is who I've used, and made the copies there, and then have it shipped to the speaking engagement that I'm going to for the number of people that are going to be anticipated in my room, and then usually end up shipping some back, or I've ran out, because I've learned the first time that just because they say there's going to be 250 people in the room doesn't mean there's going to be 250 people in the room. There may be 350, and then you're short. So having the ebook version is great as well for anybody that you may have missed. But then I've also ordered way too many and had to ship them back. And then I also have some on hand to give out to clients and have and take with me at different places. So I've used SmartPress. They do the hardcover or whatever you want. To bind it and make it look nice, and then you just print as many as you need and have it shipped there or at your office to give out that way. So Mike, back to the process. So now you know your format, you figure out the dimensions, you upload it. You mentioned the cover and the your ESIN. Yes, thank you. Those letters in a different order,
Yep.
number. So first with the cover. So I'm sure there's, the artwork and all of that. Did you hire a designer? Did you use like Fiverr? Did you do it yourself? What was your process there?
Me in Photoshop. Yeah. So basically, they give me. I could download it was a Photoshop template basically, and so then basically that gave me the bleeds, and so I knew what was going to be, a part of the binding, and I knew what was going to be off and what was going to be the center focus, and so that allowed me to work simply in the template. I mean, with the template, you could probably use Canva, do the same type of thing. So a lot of people do use Fiverr. There's people out there that definitely, you can use for that type of piece. So multiple ways to do it. I chose to do my own. Just got enough basic Photoshop skills that I can handle that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I literally did that thing A to Z.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know we've been asked just to design covers for people, and that's kind of cool, just to see that. But it's really hard to design a cover that speaks to what's in the book if you haven't read the book, So, you almost have to kind of put that into it, because a cover is so important. And as if you're thinking about this yourself and becoming self-published, I've seen several people do a few cool things. They go through a round of the designs and kind of look at them and pick out a few of their favorites or two of their favorites, and then take it to social and ask their audience like which one appeals more to them, to get some feedback there, which is kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
And again, that's another way for people to be alerted that, hey, you got something coming out.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point. And to test, different content. I'm
Right.
sure, different pieces. Okay. So now on to your number that I won't remember the initials again. So how did you register for that? What was the process?
Yeah, no, that is a really simple process. Again, and that's a key to know about ahead of time with the self-publisher that you're going to use. And so CreateSpace and now Amazon KDP made that easy because they are connected to be able to go and get that for you. And so
Nice.
that is something that they can auto generate, API related, that it comes back. This is a legitimate ISBN number that is yours, locked in for your book.
Yeah. So
And
that's basically like a barcode to say this is for sale.
yeah,
Essentially, to
and
register.
and that it takes care of that process. And so with an ISBN number, I mean, you can be categorized then, libraries, whatever. That your book can be found, distributed, located in those places, and they took care of that for me. So one of the biggest pieces, one of the biggest hurdles, probably was, because anytime you made a tweak to the book as you were finishing things, so say that on page 125 I made a edit, and that was, let's say that's chapter 6, I don't whatever, then what that does in your setup document is it throws off the table of contents for every chapter after that, because that you had your table of contents and you wanted, that starts chapter 7, it was supposed to start on page 133. Now it's 134.
Do
Okay.
that last. Yeah.
Those things are not automated. Yeah. So that was the manual process. And so, I learned that the hard way kind of a couple times because I tweaked something, because you're notorious for it's never done. It's never done. You can tweak forever. And so yes, definitely, it was like write it all out and just say, I heard this good statement, Getmo, and I liked it. Getmo is an acronym, good enough to move on. Okay, I'll
Oh,
leave
I
that with
love
you
that.
today. Good enough to move on. It was good enough to move on, and once I got that far, then I would go back and do the table of contents and say, whatever chapter the page started on, that type of piece.
You said Getmo, good
Getmo,
enough. Yeah.
Getmo,
Getmo.
altogether acronym.
I love it. Good enough to move on.
Yes.
I'm going to start using that daily. That's nice. Okay. So yeah. So word to the wise, you can have your outline done ahead of time, but don't do your table of contents yet, because it's probably most likely going to adjust, and you don't want that headache in your life. Mike's giving you.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Stopping by.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so now you have everything registered. You got your table of contents done. Now you are good and set up to get this on Amazon. I'm sure you had to set up kind of your Amazon site then at this point.
Basically, through the process, first with CreateSpace, now it's much more even streamlined with Kindle KDP. I mean, basically, it was just like any web portal where you're just kind of answering questions, and it would give you good feedback too, like the price ranges for your book, and then you made so price selections. How do you want that to display? Do you want it to display with a standard price and then a sale price, discounted price, and then where do you want it to be published? Is it just in the U.S.? Is it the U.S. and the U.K.? Does that include Australia, parts of Asia, Japan? Those types of pieces, all within the Amazon system. So wherever different countries Amazon could, you could set those pieces up. And then there was also other opportunities. So you could get into Barnes and Noble, some of those types of places, make it available for educational institutions. So those are all just kind of selections you go through to determine where you want distribution possibilities to go to. And all of those have some different royalty type pieces there. So Amazon US versus Amazon, UK, there might be a different little royalty piece there versus Amazon Japan, or versus Barnes and Noble. So of what piece of the book, purchase price they were going to keep for that piece. But again, literally that's how a book makes money. Let's say that it's a sale price of $20, And so, Amazon is going to say that, we're going to take, for the publishing and shipping of that, that type of piece, we're going to take 8. Okay. So the rest is where you're at with that type of piece. And they keep track of your sales. They distribute that like on a monthly basis type piece and those type of things. And then you can kind of see, hey, the book was performing well in the UK this month. You have the data in the background. So a lot of information there, but pretty, not a difficult process. Well, you've done the hard work once you've gotten the writing out, and then once you've gotten the format together for it. That's the hard work. The rest is just kind of making some selections and decisions and distribution.
Nice. And then they pay out, like you said, and they take a percentage for the distribution and shipping, but it's kind of cool that they handle all of that. So was the cost of kind of publishing on there was free, I'm assuming, because they are getting royalties from this, or did you have to pay for that?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So and that's another key. Again, you take a look at those. So some, again, will take less royalty because you've paid an upfront fee to publish with them. Or in this case, there was no upfront fee, and then they take that percentage out, that type of piece. The other thing that I liked about them as well is that I would get the book. I could purchase the book as the author at Amazon's cost.
That's what I was going to ask next.
Yeah. So that's why I have my stack. Ross asked about taking those with you to speaking events or whatever. So I definitely always have my stack of books that I can reorder at any point in time as the author, and get those at cost from Amazon.
Nice. Okay. So now you're up and running. Now I want to know, how has this impacted you then with your goals that you set up front? Apparently, it's worked well because you keep writing more, but I want to know, like, is there any stories or anything that's happened that it was because of you publishing and self-publishing that made it happen?
Yeah. So definitely the one I referred to earlier, the law conference in Florida. So they found me online. Again, it comes back to us. You got to have a good home base, a website, that talks about it. Yeah. So that one, she was doing some hashtag searches, and through a hashtag search on Twitter, saw a tweet from me, got to my website, saw that I was a speaker, saw and ordered the book, and read through that, felt that yes, this guy is talking the way we want to communicate to our audience, and booked me for that. And then, also ordered the copy for everyone that attended. So that was my big win.
That's on those awesome. Pieces. That's a good day right there.
Yeah. Yep. I have had every of my larger paid speaking gigs all have referenced, hey, we looked at your site. Hey, we got your book and we read that. We like what we see. So that was helpful in all of my bigger paid speaking gigs that way. I think as well, then it's had an impact from the other standpoint. So I did something in the spring with my latest book here on making the miles count, kind of the life purpose one, where I did a speaking engagement and I had the books available. So what I spoke about was basically kind of, a piece from the book kind of thing. That's what I talked about. And I said, there's always like, hey, if you want a fuller picture of this, I couldn't go into all the details. Here they are. There's a few afterwards. And then, so that basically, is a catalyst. Somebody hears you, somebody reads the book, and then they contact you. Because again, it's like a walking business card, because, your information's in there. And they said, that again, built the trust, built the rapport without me saying anything more, just, through the book, that they wanted to go and talk further then.
And that goes back to, a lot of this happening before we even know it happens, like the hashtag searching and then going into your website and then buying the book and, and reading it and then solidifying, okay, yes, now I want to reach out. It's that 60% that happens before somebody even knows that it's happening. That's super cool. Another way of finding you.
I got one more good story then. All right. So we hosted an international student from Spain that stayed with us. Right. And So in the process of before she came and stayed with us, they kind of have this, meet and greet and that type of thing. And we did I think it was like a Skype with her family at that point in time. And her father, during that initial Skype, he said, yes, I Googled your name, and then I saw there was this Amazon.com book. And so I went there and I said, okay, my daughter will be safe. He's an author on Amazon.
So if nothing else, it gives you some street cred as a safe person.
Yeah. So he could Google me. There wasn't anything bad that showed up, but the book showed up, and he was satisfied. Then
Oh my
the
God, that's
daughter's going
awesome.
okay.
That's awesome. That's funny.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, that's just a few things that how it's impacted me. There's definitely massive sense of satisfaction when you get that first copy, and because it is a labor. I mean, when you write, I mean, I write a ton of blog posts as you do, and but this is like the culmination of massive amounts of blog posts that all interrelate and are put together and go through this process. Everything has to flow from chapter 1 to 12 or whatever it is. And when you pull that off, there's definitely that massive sense of accomplishment. And there's also kind of a value add. I mean, there's times where I know I'm going into a meeting with someone, and maybe it's my leadership book or that type of thing. I'll take one of those along because I know this may be a helpful resource, and the conversation develops. And it's like, hey, as we close here, I'd like to leave you with this, and you see that kind of sense of gratitude with someone when they can say that they're receiving a book from you that you wrote. That seems to be impactful to people in a positive way. That's meant a lot to me to be able to do that for some folks.
That's awesome. No, I think that's really cool. Just the process, and that anything kind of that's hard, worth doing is hard, they say. So that just goes to show that it pays off. Now, one last question before we kind of wrap it up here. Like, what was the time frame, or what, I mean, for you, and I know this is different for everyone, but kind of what kind of time frame did this all take place in with your first book?
Yeah. I mean, all of mine are done, kind of on the fringes, and trying to, when I commit to it, then it's what can I carve out? Can I carve out a minimum of 2 hours a week? Sometimes that's what it's going to be. So the first one took me about 12 to 14 months, so a little bit over a year there. And again, remember, that's social media. So I had to keep updating things, because 12 months later, when I was starting to wrap it up, it's like, oh, that's changed. Facebook doesn't do this anymore. So 12 to 14 months. And I think that was because I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing. It was a little bit, and then I didn't have the create space Amazon piece to begin with to kind of know what their steps were. So after that, they were faster for me. But again, still, I mean, I might spend anywhere from a minimum of 2 to maybe 10 hours a week, kind of writing in those types of pieces. That's just me. That's what I had space for, that type of thing, and see what I could get done in that type of piece there. So I think the shortest amount of time that it's taken me is 5 months.
That's awesome. Because it doesn't matter, how much time, honestly, as long as you are dedicated, like you said, you committed to doing it. And I work with, some coaching clients, and it's like, okay, what is your goal? And then let's block out the time in your calendar that's non-negotiable time of whatever it is that you can commit to, but just to work toward that goal. And I think that's super smart and, helpful to know that it's not just going to happen, that you have to like block it out and commit to it. And whether it takes you 5 months or it takes you a year or you get it done in a week, whatever that looks like for you, but just committing to it and sticking to it.
Yeah, and you got to give yourself grace. I mean, there's times where I would miss that block, and things would come up. You got to move on. You got to hit the next block. You got to pick it back up again, and do that. But there also is just there was a sense, because you know what it's like. You get a crazy day, and your day goes haywire, and
Yes.
you're not in control of what's going on, kind of thing, and that's a difficult place to be. But if somehow you're able, and typically for me, I had to carve it out pretty early in the morning because that things could unravel after that. So,
Yes.
but if I could get through that block, there was always that sense of accomplishment when I did that. So from a personal standpoint, there was like, I did it. I got that. I got my time in today. I moved it forward a little bit further.
That's awesome. That is cool. And congratulations on all of your books and your one to come. We can't wait to check it out. So if everyone wants to, or anyone wants to check out, your books, where's the best place to look and find them? Is it Amazon, or do you have it on your website? Where's the best?
I do have them on my website. So if you just come to MikeGingerich.com and click on books, so I've got them all listed there. And again, there's not a lot of people with my last name on Amazon that are authors. So if you go to Amazon, type in Mike Gingerich, they pop up there as well. And, I got to add this though. The other benefit of using Amazon KDP is that a Kindle Direct Publishing. So I got print copies, but you can also get them to download for the Kindle, boom, just like that. And that was another reason I chose them, so that I have multiple formats as well. So that's the benefit depending on how you read. So from my website, it's the physical copy, but from Amazon, it's either or.
Nice. Yeah, and that makes sense because I know several people like, reading it on a Kindle or something like that. And I prefer the to hold it and touch it. But I also have been getting into Audible. So have you done Audible yet with yours? Or
I've looked into that, and I know what I could do, but the labor to get there, I have not conquered that yet. So that's been
some of these people
process.
where I'm like, oh my God, it's 13 hours. I'm like, that's 13. I've done a voiceover that's 30 seconds and it's taken me 3 hours. So I can't imagine like recording 13 hours worth of your book,
Yeah, you have to. Each file has to be certain, proper way. You do different things with each video, each audio clip, I should say. So that's something I've had requests for. The requests haven't been massive. I have not conquered that thing yet.
That's okay. That's your next big thing.
So I just encourage people. You got to take a look at it. I'd be glad to answer questions if somebody has those out there. And there is, I think, some. You don't want to do it just to do it. I mean, you want to do it just because you see some, hey, it can help me with X, Y, and Z. You want to have some multiple reasons that it could, and that's why without that, what does that leave you with if you don't? You want to answer some of those questions. But hopefully that's helpful for folks. But those are some of the keys. I mean, there's a lot of self-publishers out there. This is just the one I've used. It's been good for me. I do use them again. I'm planning on it. And I think that, but again, if you need to come back to what we talked about with Ross, and that is how quickly is what you're writing about going to change? That's key, particularly in the digital social space, to think about.
Yeah, no, I think that's right on. And, I know some clients have even came up with some of these kind of questions. Are like, okay, are we publishing this because as a book, or keeping it, as an ebook kind of copy, because they get a ton of questions on the same thing. They're like the subject matter expertise in their area, and they get a ton of questions. And this is just help them save time and help their customers from having to answer the same question redundantly again. But it may be something that they should publish, because those are just the people they know about asking the questions. There are probably more out there that just haven't found that solution yet. So I will be sharing this video with them and letting them know what the process looks like. So I appreciate your time today, Mike. Hopefully you have a good rest of your birthday and have some big plans getting spoiled tonight.
I'm going to celebrate.
Your family. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on, and thank all of you for joining in with us today on Magnet Marketers Training Tuesday Live. Again, if you have questions for Mike, drop them in the comments. After his birthday cake and birthday dinner, he'll come back and respond to them. But we will be back here next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Thanks again, Mike. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
See ya.